Alrighty. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. We are back on our BS playlist. We are gonna finish up with Deflate today, and then move on to some other fun stuff. You'll get to see all that. So first we have joining us my host and co-host Peter, as always. Thank you for coming. We have well, the show wouldn't be the same without you, Peter, in that it wouldn't exist. So, there's that. Um, we have Nestle, who is one of my script editors. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Well, good to have you. And we have Scientia Perceptum. Welcome back. Second time on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me again.
Oh, anytime. So you had so much fun with us last time that you decided to do it again.
Anytime.
Well, I will make you regret those words. All right. So, let's see. We were doing the Deflate homology video where he was making the same boring arguments that Long Story Short did, where he basically says, "Aha, incomplete lineage sorting is a thing. Therefore, evolution destroyed, decimated, whatever." Wrong, boring. What else did he argue? Sometimes there are conflicting phylogenetic trees. Wrong, boring. Try again. They're all very it's like kid who gets introduced to or high schooler, I guess, gets introduced to evolutionary methods for the first time and is like, it's debunked.
But don't you wish you first class of statistics? There's noise in your data. Wait a minute. So all statistics is wrong.
Right.
But
exactly.
Don't you wish he would actually introduce his own phylogenetic tree so we can actually understand what he's talking about?
Yeah,
because otherwise, what does it even mean? I mean, what is he even talking about if he's not going to introduce what he's trying to present to us?
Yeah. Oh, Peter, I think you might be muted or might have been muted.
I may have been. I'm pretty sure I'm no longer.
Okay. Dalton says, tell us what you guys think. Is he still muted? Anyway.
And maybe the show gets better when I'm muted. You don't know. I have it on authority from at least one young Earth creationist that it does.
Oh, well, I don't think that's true. And I also have personal anecdotes that I'm using as evidence. So I'm clearly right. Okay, they can hear you now. All right. Yeah, no, it'd be really fun to watch Deflate or one of these other creationists try to do, take a bunch of sequences and try to do a phylogenetic analysis and use muscle and all that sort of stuff to align them and get their tree and see what the bootstrap values are for all that. That'd be fun. I'd like to see that because in a recent video we did on the hippo's tail where we talked about how Answers in Genesis claim to have made this whale phylogeny, but they didn't tell us what
don't even show the phylogenetic tree that they made. It just we made it, and
they strung a bunch of sources together and said we made a phylogenetic tree. Didn't show it. There's no supplemental materials. They didn't. No picture, no link. They didn't tell us what sequences they used. Literally nothing. They're just like, we did it. Trust us, bro. We covered it.
Was it like their orchard thing?
No. It was. They were talking about whale. They were talking about how there's a problem with whale phylogenies where you can get odontocetes to be was it paraphyletic, I think, instead of monophyletic, and.
Basically, they saw one paper on whale evolution, and they said let's retry phylogenetics, and they again, as you said, they don't name the specific sequences or species that they use, but and then they say, our phylogeny doesn't match the phylogeny shown in the paper, so.
It was like cherry picking from invisible cherry trees.
Yes. Yeah, we don't even know. We don't even know what cherries were picked because they didn't show us. They just said we did it.
Jackson,
it was so good.
I think you need to start off easy. Cypher and I were talking before you guys joined before the show. So Kent Hovind does accept that dogs came from wolves. So ask him to provide when the first wolf gave birth to the first Chihuahua. And then obviously there had to have been a second wolf who gave birth to the first female Chihuahua so they could get married and have babies. Because that's how it works, right?
Position, I feel, than I can't
it is. That's exactly what we were talking about. I think we were talking about the fact that he's going to bring up the Ray Comfort thing of there's this male wolf and who did this male wolf marry? But he's not going to tell you about the fact that we have like wolf to domestic canine species, or whatever you want to call them, the different breeds going back like what 80,000 or 80,000 years now. It's going back quite a while now.
I think it's like more like 15,000, but yeah, you're right. It's a long time, and we have, as you said, there's a paper read not too long ago on the paleogenomics of some of these wolf dogs, because where wolf ends and domestic dog begins is not clear cut, which makes sense in evolution. We expect that, and so you have you can see like the morphology is like kind of intermediate, and the genes are kind of intermediate, and like, oh well, that's exactly what we expect.
And that's why I was talking about the 80,000 years, is because it actually does go back like that far, where you have these human interactions with the wolves that became our domesticated dogs.
The Asian gray wolf.
It goes back that far to where you can actually see where there's this, stepping down of certain genes going on and certain alleles that actually add up to the domestication that we see, like within the modern occurrences with the foxes in Siberia, where you can see that there are these certain traits that occur through domestication. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's neat stuff. There was a paper by, is it Pat Shipman, I think was his name? Or their name. I guess I don't technically know if that's a male. Where this person wrote that there are mammoth like mega kill sites, so where you have lots of mammoths all kind of dead in the same area. And one thing that was found in high abundance, along with an excess of like gray wolves, which were being domesticated at the time, was also Arctic foxes.
Yes.
So there may have been a second attempt at domestication independently with Arctic foxes, but didn't pan out for whatever reason. They weren't maybe labile enough in terms of their domesticity, and so they, people who tried to do that just said, the heck with it.
Also, they are doing a good job with the silver fox experiment, because they basically have a dog that isn't a dog, but they've pretty much domesticated it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The belly of experiments back from like the 60s to like, I think they're still doing it, aren't they? So
they are.
It's still ongoing.
And the interesting thing about that is, the interesting thing about that experiment is based on the fact that male fox will run away from you. And I've experienced this, and my brother has talked about this as well in his experiments with them, or his interactions with them, is that male foxes will automatically run away from you, but the female foxes don't, because they assume that you're going to be able to show them some food that they might be able to bring to their babies. And so they are more likely to, just interact with humans more. So
nice.
That's one reason that experiment was carried on, if I remember right, is they're looking at the differences between the dimorphism, the sexual dimorphism in the male to female foxes. In that,
cool.
One is, it's not just it's not just anatomical, and it's also behavioral.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I did not know
that. And that just shows you how intellectual I am, because I'm sitting here thinking of how did God create the female animals of the species that didn't have ribs?
Yeah.
I mean,
you'd have to ask a creationist.
That's true.
They were
just a pound of.
Trust me, there will come a time that I'm going to. I'm just saving up questions like this
until they became male and female and then got married. That's how that happened. So, alrighty, we ready to finish deflate so we can
let the last air out.
So we can get on to our the more interesting stuff. I'm very curious to hear what our intelligent design friends have to say.
It's been a while since I watched that video. I do know I recall that I got very aggressive while watching it. There are some nasty things, but I forgot which. So
I don't believe I've seen it or anyone doing like a systematic rebuttal of it. So I'm excited.
So it could have been a different one, but I did saw one, and then the Nazis come up, and then it goes downhill from there.
The Nazis.
Yeah. I mean,
and we're demonetized.
Yeah. I mean, it's that, but it's inevitable when talking to young Earth creationists. They will always bring that up.
Yeah. So, that's why one of Dapper's drinking rules is Godwin's law. So
yeah. Okay.
Right. So let's see what we got.
Hop over to this happy guy. I just can't help it.
He looks so happy.
He looks so. Yes. Okay.
You can put the jigsaw puzzle together based on the shape of the pieces or their colors, and it doesn't matter whether you take this or that route or even switch between them. In the end, the pieces will fit because they are part of one and the same big picture. However, that's exactly what you don't get when it comes to molecular and morphological homologies. Instead, as was noted in science, animals...
Really, what piece is he talking about? He says genetic and he says, other things, but what does he mean by that?
Probably referring to something like the thylacine or the marsupial wolf.
Possibly, yeah.
It looks so much like a dog.
But the funny thing about you're probably right. But to undercut that example, the thylacine, while it does look broadly like a dog, has all the characteristics diagnostic of marsupials, right? Yeah. And not just the physiological ones. If you look at the morphology of it, the teeth, the skull does look like a dog's. It has the teeth that are a diagnostic of that group, which is awesome. Dasyuromorphia. So it has the teeth which are diagnostic of that group. So it's like in the same group as the Tasmanian devil and the numbat.
They don't have the carnassials of the carnivorans.
Right, exactly. But it's like, even though, yes, it does have these characteristics that make it look similar, and indeed it does, it's still betrayed, under all of that by its marsupial characters, as well as by its biogeography, right? Why are there no eutherians endemic to Australia? Well, we have a biogeographic explanation for this, which again betrays the fact that it is a marsupial. It's not a eutherian.
Also, Deflate, please mention the platypus. Please mention
the platypus. No, not again. But also, for this section, big citation needed, because for the characters, I would say for most of the characters that you can use in a phylogeny. So if you want to use, Darwin's famous example, the hand, right? The genes that make up our hand and wrist and arm are the exact same ones that do it for birds and reptiles and amphibians. And I'm willing to bet a large sum of money for fish like Eusthenopteron too. Because it's all the same bones, right? It's all the same.
It's all the same designer, Jackson. You've been told this so many times. It's the same designer, but the same body plan
is intentionally deceiving us.
Yeah, so he made all the limbs in the exact same way, just like he did the eyes and sorry.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Saying,
Oh, there's actually some nuance about the homology between like the digits of tetrapods and the finger arrays.
Absolutely. Well, right. Is it are the autopods like, are they a de novo character, or is there homology? What I was referring to is more like the actual, like, the hands, the wrist, the bones, all those are, those genes are all the same. But you're right. There is debate over whether the fingers evolved like as a completely new thing, or as they were built on fin rays.
I would probably put my money on the thing about it's a like a phase transition with the Turing pattern that patterns the these elements basically.
Sure,
that's what I would say.
Because it's right. Because to your point, it's like with the like with brachiopods and bivalves, right? This, or I guess with mollusks, because mollusks have the pathway for like depositing calcium carbonate. Well, brachiopods use the same pathway, but for like a slightly different set of minerals. So yeah. What were you saying?
So does he ever go into biogeography at all? Does he ever say like,
creationists never go into biogeography?
Oh, I know, but does this guy does he say, oh, this is how it happened? This is why we only find marsupial-like organisms in Gondwana land, and we don't find them in
Not. I've never seen a creationist ever attempt to offer an explanation as to why. The closest I've ever seen is like post-arc, the animals kind of spread out to escape each other. But for a time scale, like, he doesn't claim to be a creationist, or at the very least, we haven't seen any evidence that would positively identify him as a creationist. So he would have to offer up an explanation as to why the marsupials are there in Australia and why not eutherians.
Right.
And he's never done that.
Why does plate tectonics match up with the evolutionary predictions of where life occurs? And to that point, why do we find all these connections between South America, Australia, and Antarctica, where there's actually really no extant life that we would recognize today as being from those other areas? Why does Antarctica have fossils from that they're more similar to Antarctica and Australia and some other areas? Why is it there?
Yeah, and those are all very good questions. As RJ would say, that's all map of time stuff.
But that's a young Earth creationist thing, isn't it?
Well, no. I mean, what RJ means when he says that is like, what do you? Well, I mean, that's also part of it. Is really just map of time just means like, what do you think was happening at each point, right? If we were to go back 5,000 years ago, 500,000 years ago, 5 million years ago, what was happening at that time? Can you tell us? Because you take you could take Deflate, for instance. Ask him what was going on 540 million years ago. He'll say, the Cambrian explosion. What did life on land look like at that time? You're not going to get an answer. He doesn't know because he hasn't thought about it. He doesn't care. His whole thing is he's just ripping off like Meyer, right? Or Gunter Beckley or whoever. So what they're saying is all he knows, right? And really, it's not even all that they're saying. It's he's just kind of getting like the sound bites off of that, and he's trying to regurgitate that. So he doesn't know.
They're not even trying to explain it with something like Walt Brown's hydroplate theory or hydroplate claim.
Fact, I'll give you guys a little taste of something that's going to come out on Professor Dave's channel in, I don't know, probably a few weeks or months, something like that. Because I've written or co-authored several scripts for him. I did the Stephen Meyer one, the first Gunter Beckley one, and there's going to be a second Gunter Beckley one. Well, one of the things that we criticize Meyer and also Beckley is that the intelligent design proponents have no model. At least with young Earth creationists, you can say, they say the Earth was created 10,000 years ago. There was a flood 4,000 years ago.
And here's what happened. Yeah. And here's how everything moved around. Right. Yeah.
Right. And it's bonkers. Yeah. It's crazy land, but at least they have an idea of what they think was happening. Intelligent design does not. They don't even try. Intelligent design is it's another thing RJ says. It's creationism light. It's basically all the dogma with even fewer facts, or
Well, the thing I've always thought about intelligent design is basically saying that, yeah, evolution happened, but God did it, and that's it. It's just the God of the gaps fallacy, and that's all it is.
Well, in that case, I would even say that's more like theistic evolution, because theistic evolution people are really just like, yeah, evolution happens, no problem there. God exists, fine, well and good. And that's, to me, okay, fine. Okay, great. No problem. Intelligent design is more antagonistic towards evolution. It's kind of like every time evolution is claimed to have done something, they're like, no, I don't think so. It may have happened a long time in the past, but that wasn't natural processes. That was God. Right.
But what you're saying at that point is that intelligent design is basically based off of young Earth creationism. They're just saying that, yes, it happened as if evolution happened, but we can't explain the time period in which it happened.
I mean, I suppose it's really just kind of it is kind of like God of the Gaps, but extrapolating backwards in time. And the funny thing about a lot of intelligent design is it's just covert young Earth creationism.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that.
Like Paul Nelson works at the DI. He's just a creationist. That's all he is. He's not a. He's not. He doesn't think the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. He thinks it's 10,000 years old, right?
Well, I totally agree. That's the fact with the intelligent design movement is basically they were not going to try to pin themselves to a particular date, even though a lot of them did. Like Behe and Myers and other people. They basically were like, no, we're not going to tell you what date we think it happened. We just think that it happened this way, and when there's certain gaps, we're going to just fill it in and say we don't know how that happened exactly, and we can't explain it. But hey, there must have been some deity that did it.
Basically, yes, that's sort of their proposition. I had a debate with Fazal Rana a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
Jesus Christ! How have I? Every time I think of like my channel started in 2016, and that was almost 7 years ago. Jesus. I had a debate with Fazal Rana a few years ago.
The good old days.
Good old days.
Dawkins would crash your stream.
Oh man, that's a name I haven't thought of. Or Jungle Jargon. There's another one.
Ooh.
Anyway, we're getting off track. Anyway, not going down there. Fazal Rana. I had a debate with him, and Fazal Rana is kind of wedded to, and I don't know if this is true for like everybody at Reasons to Believe, and by everybody I mean also Hugh Ross. But they're kind of wedded to the idea of like, the Richard Owen, like progressive creation, like God created the Paleozoic fauna 541 million years ago, kind of let things go, then comes along and the start of the Mesozoic sort of, clears the deck, does a new creation. And that's kind of what
it's the God of the mass extinction gaps.
Yeah, I suppose. Because when I went into that debate and I was like, I don't know what he thinks about, all this stuff. And when he says that, I was like, okay, so what are your thoughts on like organisms that span like an extinction event, like Lystrosaurus, which spanned from the end of the Paleozoic to the Mesozoic, or Cloudina, which extended from the Precambrian into the early Cambrian. And he was kind of like, I don't really know how to explain that. I was just like, okay. And I like Fazal Rana, and it was a good chat. I had a good time talking to him.
But it's just this extension of that orchard.
Yes, basically.
Idea. Yeah. Basically that you have these certain clads that occur, and then they adaptively radiate. But we don't know exactly when they adaptively radiate according to ID. They just, kind of appear out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you have all these extant species that are that we can see nowadays. So instead of being like, it all happened, at the Noachian flood, it happened at different time periods, and we can't really tell you when that is because it's kind of mysterious.
Basically, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's basically intelligent design in a nutshell. We don't believe that birds evolved from dinosaurs. Well, when did God create birds? We don't really know. We don't believe that vertebrates and arthropods share a common ancestor. Well, when did God create both those groups? Yeah, we don't really know. When did God create humans? Yeah, we don't really know. It's like we don't want evolution, but we don't have answers to replace anything with. So
yeah, it's just magic. It happened at some point.
Yes.
We just want to say it happened.
Right.
And don't worry about how it happened. It just happened.
It's just that way. Stop asking questions.
Yeah.
Jackson, can I say one thing? You mentioned a specific name, and I did want to say something about that. You mentioned jungle jargon. So and there have been some comments in the side chat. I had a conversation with Jungle Jargon together with another atheist on one of Little Pee-Pee's streams, where you know what he does, right? He will just at some point just go to bed and leave the stream running with whoever's in it.
Yeah, right.
And so the two atheists were the last ones in it, and we didn't just try and make a mock of the whole thing. We just left respectfully. But so Jungle was in there, and that was the one time that I think that I've ever had an honest conversation with him. At some point, he said that at the end of his army career, he developed schizophrenia, and he didn't have medication for that and struggled with that for a long time. That is the time when he converted to becoming a young Earth creationist. And so we did ask him a few questions. So could it be possible that your condition led to the position you hold right now? And he said it could very well be. So
okay. I feel uncomfortable to blame his condition for such
I asked him. I didn't blame. I asked him, and he said it was a possibility. So from that moment on, after that conversation, my look on Jungle Jargon is slightly different. There might be something that has caused things. I just wish he wasn't that aggressive all the time. And I tried to at least build some bridges.
Okay. Well, is what it is. All right, we ready to move on?
Yes.
All right, let's go.
Relationships derived from these new molecular data sometimes are very different from those implied by older classical evaluations of morphology.
Okay,
similarly, nature of...
Yeah, really.
Pause. Okay, wait, what? Duh.
Now we have the blue screen of death. Now we have the blue screen of death.
Before we had molecular genetics, things were extraordinarily different with the morphological phylogenies. That is, nobody thinks that that's a problem for evolution. Literally no one.
Nope.
Like, what are you even talking about? My goodness.
It's again the difference of we made a few corrections versus it's entirely different from what we thought previously. Like most relationships are still the same. A
lot of the invertebrates got shifted around, and that's fine because we didn't know much of anything about many of them for a long time, and so their relationships were questionable, and that's fine. But for instance, the vertebrates and their relatives, we've all been together, since people started building phylogenies. The vertebrates and the chordates have been together, and the arthropods and the velvet worms have been together, and all that sort of stuff. It's that hasn't been a question at all. Or all the members of Cnidaria or members of Porifera.
And a lot of that has been together just because of embryology.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Embryology, reproductive structures, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be
even in the fossil record.
Yeah, it shouldn't be surprising that scientists have updated their things in light of new data. But of course, then you have some people will say it's all wrong. It's all wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Science changes with new data. Wow.
And I stand corrected. We have ugly German truth in the chat. It is the blue screen of extinction, not of death. I need to stay on topic. Okay.
For me,
it's
like purplish.
It is kind of purplish. Yeah, you're right. Anyway. All right, we can keep going.
Okay.
Observed that evolutionary trees constructed by studying biological molecules often don't resemble those drawn up from morphology. So we've looked at comparisons of trees based upon different genes and comparisons
from the year 2000.
It's like that can be true for some things, but like citation, please. What specifically? What phylogenies are you specifically referring to? I'd like to know.
He gave a citation below the quote. It's from
he gave it for the quote. I mean, for like a phylogeny where like the morphology and the genetics were like completely different, and this completely upended our idea.
Okay, can you go back to the citation because I can look it up.
I was waiting for that, and I.
Sorry.
Yeah. This is not something that OBS was made for. I need to figure out a way to do that.
There it is.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Bones molecules of it's just from nature.
You know, I'm willing to bet that it's going to be an article on like, here was a problem we used to have in phylogenetics, and we solved it by incorporating more data.
It's not even a paper. I think it's just like a popular article.
Like a magazine article.
Pop article. Yeah, magazine. Yeah.
Yeah, Nature.
I think you're right.
Even
Nature magazine.
Beyond that, at the point that he's trying to make this claim, there was probably no molecular data anyway. There was no real genetic comparison between species. So I'm sure what he's saying is just another straw man. It's basically saying that, we have this anatomical data that matches, and then later on, genetic information comes along and it matches. But why does it match? And why is that important? And does that support evolution, or does it support creationism? He's not saying that. He's not saying that it supports there being some kind of intelligent designer. He's just saying that, what's the question here? He's doing Tucker.
Tucker Carlson.
He's doing a Tucker Carlson. He's just asking questions and not actually saying, here's what actually we know about it. He's saying, anatomically they look this way, but we didn't have genetics at that point. So what does that mean?
Oh, okay. One of the things is actually something we did discuss in the Hippo's Tale. It talks about whales. Yeah, so the thing with whale evolution was morphology placed them outside, like sister to the artiodactyls, but then genetics placed them inside the artiodactyls. But mesonychids, since mesonychids were considered their like stem group, it was very difficult to place them within. They're like, well, it can't be derived from this group and also in the artiodactyls. But then we found, the paleontologists in the 90s found Pakicetus and Ambulocetus, and it's like, hey, these are artiodactyls. These are the stem group of whales, not the mesonychids. So the morphology, and the paleontology and the genetics all line up now. So I don't know how that's a problem for evolution, but whatever.
Yeah, it reminds me of the fire line debate with Berlinski and Behe and Miller. Basically, where Kenneth Miller brings out this graph and he says, here's the species that you were just talking about, but where are the missing links? And then he asks the question to the creationist side. When was that? That was 2009, I think, Fire and Land debate. And then the answer is, we don't have any, missing links. And then Kenneth Miller, basically rips off the places and says, look, we do have these missing links. And, how many missing links do you want? Mm-hmm. We can provide as many as you want. We can provide them both from paleontology and from genetics, but you're not going to accept them, are you?
Yeah, that Kenneth Miller is pretty great. He's an awesome guy.
It also mentions the discussion between the relationship between the chimpanzees and humans and orangutans. the morphology says that the humans are like an out group to the great apes.
Mm-hmm.
But of course the genetics basically won. Like we are closely related to chimpanzees. So
yeah, but even Linnaeus said that humans and chimpanzees should be in the same genus again.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well. Anyway, he's just ripping off or quote mining an article. What a surprise! A creationist quote mining. Who would have thunk it?
And outdated also.
Yeah, an outdated article. Yeah. All right, we can move on.
Biological molecules often don't resemble those drawn up from morphology. So we've looked at comparisons of trees based upon different genes and comparisons between trees based upon genes versus morphology. The one option that is missing is the...
It's the royal we.
Yeah, I guess. All right.
Comparison between trees based upon morphological features only. Note that, in contrast to genetic homology, the investigation of morphological homology is as old as the theory of evolution itself, as it was one of Darwin's key arguments for his theory. So clearly, given that this endeavor is over 160 years old, one should expect that here at least, coherence and clarity about the one tree of life would be within reach. Yet even in this case, the records are no better than everything we've seen so far. That's why two zoologists from St. Andrews and Oxford University state that, taken together, modern re-evaluations of traditional evidence support different and mutually exclusive subsets of relations. So systematics, no matter whether they're concerned with genetics, morphology, or both, consistently yield mutually contradictory trees of life, which is why it's been said that in point of fact there exists no such thing as the traditional textbook phylogeny. A diversity of different schemes can be found. I said at the beginning that Darwinists have resorted to studies of genetic or molecular homology, partly because they realized that the fossil record did not confirm evolutionary theory. For example, evolutionary biologist Jerry Coyne says that now we have a powerful new and independent way to establish answers.
My pause button stopped working for some stupid reason.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. I just wanted to say on that point where he said that there is no single textbook phylogeny, he literally just said things are more complicated than I learned in high school, therefore it's wrong. That is literally the argument he's making.
And he also tried to go all the way back to Darwin to say that this doesn't work because Darwin said this.
Like, my goodness.
Who didn't know about genetics, so...
It's kind of like with all the guys on like Twitter who are like, sex is, it's all this, it's only this, there are no exceptions. Well, what about all these exceptions?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like my guy, just because you didn't learn everything in high school doesn't mean that like it's wrong, that the whole field is wrong, or that nobody knows anything. It just means you don't know anything. That's it. That's all that means. I'm curious to see what this quote is. Now we have a powerful new and independent way to establish ancestry. All right, continue, please.
Ancestry. We can look directly at the genes themselves by sequencing the DNA of various species and measuring how similar these sequences are. We can reconstruct their evolutionary relationships.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
That is very true. Jerry Coyne was correct when he said that.
My button works again.
A lot of details that goes into that, but it's generally speaking true. Yeah.
And for some reason, it matches up with paleontology. How's that happen?
It's wacky world. It's okay. So he keeps saying that morphology and genes, and also presumably fossils, like don't match up. But it's like, can you give an example? Because if you noticed, he has given no example so far.
Actually, one example, like one citation that we previously saw, like it gave Wells, which is actually an example of how eventually the morphology vindicated the genetics.
Well, yes, the article did, but he didn't. He hasn't actually provided any examples yet. He's given us nothing. If he would actually give us an example of like what is something he thinks. When we did our video about or one of the long story short videos, he pulled up a phylogeny in which researchers used, was it microRNAs? And it like conflicted with the DNA.
I mean, like cytochrome B with.
Well, no, it wasn't cytochrome B. They used he pulled up some researchers who used a different they used a different method than normal for like he wasn't using the normal phylogenetic genes or markers for phylogeny, whatever. He was using something else. This team was, and they got this like radically different phylogeny, but they had like really low. But it had like low bootstrap values. I can't quite remember. Anyway,
I think it's still
maybe I'm getting
about
cytochrome
B, I think, or maybe not.
I remember with the cytochrome B, what I remember with that one was he was like, there are some trees that give discordant results, but they all have low bootstrap values. But there was another one. I don't know. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Anyways,
go watch the long story.
Go watch our videos and tell me what I forgot, please. Give me that sweet AdSense.
But was it that dissimilar from the actual phylogenies that we have nowadays? Like, was it that desperate? Was it basically like, mollusks are related to?
It had low bootstrap values. The thing was,
I think it was the maximum likelihood tree that the maximum likelihood tree that was shown is different than the accepted phylogeny. However,
maybe that's what it was.
The difference in the significance, the statistical significance between that and the standard view was not very much. So there is little significance to distinguish the two. So yeah. Oh, yeah, I think it's the
What did you say,
dog.
Peter?
The dog.
I'll show it. For some reason, this guy is picking up stuff from on Ra's dog. He thinks that he should be interrupting while I'm live. I am live. Don't bite me.
Oh, how sweet. But yeah, the
I didn't even do my Otangelo voice. Get off. Okay, sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay. He's very cute. Well, basically, the long story short was trying to use a phylogenetic tree incorrectly to argue against evolution, which was dumb. So anyway,
even the authors in the very paper say that the statistical support for this phylogeny is not strong enough to replace the accepted phylogeny. That's right. That's basically what they are saying.
But it probably wasn't. It probably wasn't like, again, it wasn't linking sponges, were more of a common ancestor to vertebrates than mollusks were. I mean,
it was just within mammals. It was just a tree of mammals.
Oh, yes. Now I know the study you're talking about now. I'll have to look that up again myself. Yeah, but that's the whole point. It's not actually showing that there's. It's not showing that the phylogenies that we have are incorrect. It's just showing that there's like these small differences that we can't quite place exactly where. Yeah.
And we did a video where we talk about why you might get discordant, or we've done several videos in the ancestry test about long branch attraction, or incomplete lineage sorting, horizontal gene transfer, all that sort of stuff. Those are all different reasons you might get discordant results based on which gene you pick. And there's differences between species trees and gene trees and all that sort of stuff. And
it's complex.
It is complex. Yes, it is. It is slightly more difficult than you might have thought at first.
So. For the people in chat who say that this is now going to be a 2-hour stream of the puppy, it isn't. But they're talking about that the dog might understand more. My dog hates Otangelo. If I play an Otangelo video or do an Otangelo voice, he'll get aggressive. I'm not going to do my Otangelo voice here because we have a show to do. And he's already annoying.
Or maybe he's just a big Kermit the Frog fan.
I have no clue. I didn't teach him that. It just happened. I was playing an Otangelo video and the dog came at me. And then because I try to impersonate Otangelo at times, every single time I talk like Otangelo, he goes nuts. I can do any other voice.
Also likes Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I do. I do the other guy. What what's his the black guy who has a radio show?
I don't know.
Jesse Lee Peterson.
Oh yeah, Jesse Lee Peterson. Yeah.
Oh God.
Doesn't mind me doing Jesse Lee Peterson. Doesn't mind me trying to impersonate Hovind. Otangelo.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Beta. So okay. Want to continue?
All right. Anyway, back to the video.
I'm going to continue. Yeah.
Essentially, what he means by independent is independent of the fossil record, which has challenged evolutionary theory due to its lack of transitional forms. Richard Dawkins takes an even more outspoken stance as he bluntly states that we don't need fossils. The case for evolution is watertight without them. Now, these statements have a rather strange...
I knew he was going to pull that quote. I knew he was going to do it. It is such an overused quote. Okay. First of all, yes, when Jerry Coyne said something is independent, that meant it's independent. Yes, Deflate. Glad you know words. Great. The quote about fossils is that what Dawkins is saying is that, yes, we don't need fossils to make the case for evolution. In fact, Darwin barely used fossils. He pointed to, I think it was Megatherium and Glyptodon in the first edition.
Biogeography and classification of life, basically. Yeah.
Right. Biogeography, classification of life.
Comparative morphology,
those were the things that he used to solidify evolution, and basically everybody basically agreed from the get-go that universal common ancestry was true. The problem was getting them to accept that natural selection was the mechanism. That was the big issue. Right. And then you had the whole eclipse of Darwinism in the late 1800s, and then it wasn't until you had the formation of the neo-Darwinian synthesis that really everybody got on board with natural selection in the 1920s. But anyways,
and then if you scroll back, you'll see that ellipsis there, right? He made this exactly. He left. What do you leave out? Why did he leave it out? He basically he took these two separate segments. Probably, who knows? There could have been a whole paragraph in between those two parts. What did he leave out, and why did he leave it out? Is kind of really important.
The rest of the quote is something to the effect of the fact that we have fossils at all is miraculous, or something like that. So Dawkins is just saying
you think he would have included that.
You think he would have included that? Yeah. Dawkins is just saying, the comparative morphology, the biogeography, the genetics. This on its own vindicates evolution. Fossils are great and all. It's cool that we have this sort of prima facie evidence of how the transition occurred from A to B to C, but we don't need it. The case is already made. It's open and shut. And he didn't read. I know he hasn't read that book. I know he hasn't. But didn't Darwin predict that there would be a lot of transitional fossils? So when Darwin was saying, yes, Darwin did predict that there would be lots of transitional fossils, but Darwin was also in this position of evolution proceeds constantly and gradually, which yes and no. Again, it sort of depends. How many transitional? And we do have lots of transitional fossils.
He didn't put a number on it or something like that.
Right.
But he did make specific predictions. For example, Archaeopteryx. He predicted that the bird would be found with unfused wing fingers and such.
Right.
Exactly. He admitted that we didn't have a lot at the time that he was actually writing his book. He basically said that there's probably a lot out there. We just don't know of them, and here's why we don't know of them. Because geological events are going to not allow us to see them, or because they're just not exposed at the surface where we can actually find them.
And I've actually been reading a lot of the original papers by Gould and Eldridge on punctuated equilibrium recently, because we did his bizarre videos about punctuated equilibrium. Gould and Eldridge, their sort of primary problem with gradualism was that the fossil record doesn't look predominantly like you just have this gradual flowering of lineages. It looks like in a lot of cases you have stasis for a bit, and then you have these allopatric speciation events, and that occurred relatively rapidly, as in a few, hundreds of thousands of years, or maybe a couple million years. And so it looks like it occurred instantly, but it occurred in a geological instant, not a biological instant.
It occurred because of certain sedimentation events that were going on, and they didn't occur in every area. And because, certain areas, they're going to not be there because of particular reasons. Either they're in a forest environment where the fossils are just not going to occur because the bones are just going to, and the bodies are just going to rot away. And in other areas, they occur because, we have this great sedimentary record because there's always water in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so So yes, Darwin did predict that there would be transitional fossils, and by the 6th edition of Origin of Species, a number of them had been collected, Archaeopteryx and Compsognathus, and he pointed out how you have this dinosaur that has these sort of avian features, and then you have this bird which has these reptilian features, and of course now we have dozens and dozens of fossils that span that gap. He pointed to a Halotherium, which was a Saurinian, so a member of the manatee and dugong group that still had hind limbs, or at least very rudimentary hind limbs. He pointed to was it Zeuglodon, which we now call Basilosaurus, which also was a whale that still had hind limbs. Now, it wasn't using them for moving around on land. They're far too atrophied to do that. But why do whales need hind limbs, right? If they didn't evolve from land creatures, why would they need these external hind limbs? They weren't just buried in the muscle tissue like it is for whales today. They would have extruded from the side.
Yeah.
So Darwin had a number of transitional fossils that he was very happy about.
And that was considering when paleontology was so young, dinosaurs were a new thing.
Right, exactly.
Right. And today we have increasingly bad or worse movies about dinosaurs. That's our state of today.
It's all gone downhill from
Although there may be a new one that may be good. I hope it will be good, like the 65. It's called. I don't know if you've also seen the trailers for that one.
I don't know. Prehistoric Planet was good though.
I was talking about movies, but that's a good. Yeah.
Jurassic World,
That was a banger, yes. That was a banger. Prehistoric World.
Bang your head on the wall. Yeah.
Banger.
All right, we can keep going.
Aftertaste, as they basically communicate that molecular evidence is more important than evidence from the fossil record. In other words, they imply that the work of molecular biologists is more valid than the work of paleontologists. Yet, oddly enough, evolutionary biologists are actually forced to depend on the science of paleontology when trying to determine the timing of evolutionary history. In light of this, Dawkins' dismissive statement about fossils is quite awkward and raises the question of whether with his overconfident rhetoric, he's trying to cover up for the evidential weaknesses plaguing evolutionary theory. But what's even more awkward is this. The very aim of neo-Darwinists in studying genetic homology was to establish evidential support for evolution and to draw...
Let's just plain this honesty, because it does not say what he just said at all. They are just saying the case can be made with just the genetics evidence. They aren't saying that fossils are not important or relevant. They are just saying that even if we didn't have fossils, we could still make the case for that. That's all saying.
Exactly.
He wrote 2 chapters about transitional fossils in Greatest Show on Earth. 2 chapters. You'd think if he thought fossils didn't matter at all, he wouldn't have written 2 chapters about them. Right? Or he wrote lots of chapters about fossils in The Ancestor's Tale, right? Also, I do want to, so Deflate's just lying here or being disingenuous. I don't know.
I don't know. You read something and you're just saying something which it does not imply. It's a leap of logic.
Yeah, I do want to point out the non-negotiables podcast says, I don't know, dozens seems irreconcilably few. I said dozens just for the dinosaur to bird transition. If you can provide me a citation for how many you think should exist, or give us a number and why that number, then maybe we'll have something to work with. I don't know. You're just kind of flipping off the fossils that we do have for no reason. Just saying, well, that's not enough. Darwin had even fewer than that, and he managed to build a evolutionary theory. But again, it's not. We don't need the fossils to make the case for evolution, but fossils are nice to have because they confirm what we already thought. They're an independent source of evidence. So, I mean, like, there are lineages. Non-negotiables. There are lineages of organisms where you have like dozens of species, like one after another, right? Like with foraminifera, diatoms, radiolarians, coccolithophores. These are like protists, and you can find, like, as you go up, like species, new species, and then a new species, and then a new species. Like, those lineages exist. They're not hard to find in the literature. We did a whole, was it like 3 episodes with Dapper Dinosaur, where we talked about the evidence for evolution and the process, and that was one of the things we talked about. So, no, it's not just dozens. It was dozens for that one transition. So, anyway, all right, we can keep going.
And we don't actually need the fossil record for a lot of species out there, because we have the genetics, and vice versa. We don't need genetics to back it up because we have the fossil record. There's plenty of species that we can find in the fossil record that we have no genetics for at all, because there's no extant species for us to compare the things that we find in the fossils to.
And take something, for instance, like elephants and manatees, and we do have like genomes of different like elephants and manatees, but if you look at the earliest members of Proboscidea, so the elephants, like Merotherium, and the earliest members of Sirenia, like Prorostomus, and compare them, they're extremely similar. Right. Even if we didn't have genetics, you could look at them and say, okay, these two are more similar to each other morphologically than either is to any other group. That's a thing. Also, yes, Ugly German Truth makes a good point. Non-negotiables, it sounds like a moving goalpost. No, a few dozen is not enough. I need a few hundred. When you get a few hundred, it becomes a few thousand, etc. Yeah, it's a fair point.
And again, we have all these extinct clades. I mean, we have more extinct clades than we do living ones, and we can show how they are related to extant clades. Just by the morphology and the anatomy. We don't need the genetics. It would be nice if we had it, but it's not necessary at all.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. You'd expect million. Okay.
We've been on for almost an hour, and we covered 3 whole minutes.
I guess I'll change the title. I'll change the title afterwards. We'll solve the problem. Well, we're almost there.
We're
you
almost
are kind of flipping it off. You can't say
we're halfway.
Well, you can't.
The piece that we were supposed to cover, and we're an hour in.
That's fine.
No,
you can't say on the one hand that you're not flipping it off, and also say, "Oh, well, just dozens. Oh, I'd expect more than that." Well, again, yeah, that's as Ugly German Truth said. That's just moving a goalpost.
He's expecting millions now.
There are millions.
Species or
transitional fossils. No, you didn't derail. It's fine. We can keep moving on.
Okay.
All right.
The tree of life independently and without the need of the fossil record. Yet this project has manifestly failed, and it has failed even though supposedly without those fossils, the case for evolution is watertight. However, instead of homology and phylogenetic studies yielding one coherent picture of how evolutionary relationships played out in actual history, there have emerged all sorts of mutually contradictory and exclusive scenarios, so much so in fact that scientists speak of the annihilation of the tree of life. Now, given that resorting to genetic
here we get to Doolittle.
What?
Here we get to Doolittle.
Can he provide a quote that scientists, because
no citations.
Yeah.
No, he's just doing the Gish Gallop.
Yes.
Oh, I think he will either quote or show a clip by Doolittle
or Shostak, one of those guys saying that the horizontal gene transfer means you can't just do a simple tree for prokaryotes. Yeah. We could take bets, on this. So, but
you can all take a drink if it happens.
Right? Take a drink. Yeah. No citations, no examples. Oh, fossils don't match with the genetics. An example, please, of anything? Literally anything. My goodness. Okay. All right.
Homology and constructing the tree of animal relationships was supposed to make up for the fact that the fossil record challenges evolutionary theory, and given that the Tree of Life project failed, we're now back to face the hard facts of paleontology. Or to put it differently.
What do you mean it failed? According to what? To who? Somebody tell Aaron to stop making the phylogeny.
Yeah.
It's over.
That might be where he got it from, because the Phylogeny Explorer project keeps failing because the database is too big and the website can't handle it. The guy who's one of the guys who's working on that is also the guy who repaired the script for me to do this show. And so while we were doing that, we did have some chats about how it's going, and I was allowed, because it's no longer public. So he did allow me to have a sneak peek of what is going on behind the scenes. But if you see what they're putting in there, so if you just click a random species, you get a picture, you get information on where it is. In what clade it is, and what its closest relatives are. All of that information needs to be put in there. And then imagine how many species we have just today.
Yeah. It's over 3 million, isn't it, that we have documented?
And they want to put everything in there. So the extinct and the ones that are currently alive. That's why
that's a few.
Yes. And so they can't figure out how to have the database that they currently have and have the website deal with it. It's not failing. It is so
best of luck to
incredibly big, and we know so much that even the best computers on the planet can't handle putting this thing in a website.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, best of luck to him. I hope he, No, they have the same respiratory system. There is no difference in the respiratory system of manatees and elephants. They have the same. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, I was just wondering about that as well.
There's the same.
Does he think manatees breathe through gills?
They don't have a blowhole, which is also just a nose. When I see creationists say how did the respiratory system of whales evolve from it's the same. They literally just moved their nose up onto their forehead. That's it. That's all they did. The rest is the same. I don't know. Anyway, keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Also,
the hard fact.
Sorry. What were we saying, Nestle?
He says that to go from a manatee to an elephant, but elephants didn't come from manatees. That's also one thing.
Right. Yeah. They share a common ancestor. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Yep. Anyway.
Of paleontology oppose the notion of there being a tree of life, and if that supposed tree of life cannot be independently established by genetic homologies, well, what evidence for Darwin's tree of life are we left with? To put it,
he just typed out a sentence that he spoke. It wasn't a quote, and he even had the well in there, which just why? Why? I don't get it. I don't understand anything.
It's called a teleprompter, Jackson.
I mean, you're right. That's true. I just as we've said in multiple other videos, I don't understand many of the executive decisions in this.
So
I just don't get it.
Bluntly, Dawkins's claim.
Hold on. No. Yes, they do. What are you talking about? Citation needed, non-negotiables. They use the same cells. Like all mammals have the same like cellular makeup. What are you talking about?
From the same genetic code.
Right.
As well. It's not like there's some completely new genetic code that's encoding for different lungs and different pathways. It's the same thing. That's why we always talk about, we can choke when we breathe. Why is that? Well, because those two things are linked up, and that's totally due to genetics.
Yeah. I don't know where you're coming from, dude. I have no idea what you're talking about. This is the same cells. In us too. Like we're using the same cells. I don't get it.
Now he's going to go to a common designer did this, and that's why certain things look the same. Well, why do other things look totally different? Why do vertebrates have a certain blastopore that develops in a certain way when invertebrates don't? That's basically what he's saying. Is there must have been two designers then, or multiple designers for these different body plans to actually have come about, right? How else could it have occurred? One designer invented the vertebrates and one invented the invertebrates, right?
Right.
That also must have been what happened.
Designed by committee.
Okay. I think you also mentioned this in one video about like if we look good at one of the early relatives of Ceranians or the manatees, and also the early relatives of the elephants. What's the main difference between the two of these early relatives?
Oh, the food that they eat.
Yes,
that was splitting kinds. We did that. Yeah, we talked about that. So we looked at a paper that was comparing their hips, and it's like they have the same, like. Pretty much everything's the same. Their walking pattern. Yes, they're the same. What are you talking about?
Even if you acknowledge that today they are quite different, if you go back in the fossil record, you see that they only different. The main difference is the diet, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Do we need to go into spandrels? Do we need to talk about? Do we need to talk about? You did? You already did spandrels? No,
well, we didn't do spandrels in particular, but we did talk about Stephen Jay Gould. They both have airbrain. Do you have a citation for like anything that you're saying?
Lung cells. So
like, do you think the lung cells are when they're different? What do you think that means? Right? Like, maybe they're slightly different shapes. Maybe that's entirely possible, but they're the same as our lung cells. They're doing the same thing. They're taking oxygen from the atmosphere, right? And
they're formed by the same genetical pathways. That's the whole point here, right?
Exactly. I don't know what on earth he's talking about.
No, I don't either. So just ignore him.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, he's just throwing shit into the wind.
Non-negotiables. Future reference. If you want, you can come on this channel. Not today, obviously.
Oh, that'd be great.
But like, if you want to come on like next Thursday and have a chat, usually I have Dapper Dinosaur on for those. So if you want to come on and talk to us,
can I be on this time too? If it happens.
if he agrees, then yeah, that's fine.
What you should have what you should have on,
then it's also fine.
What you should have on, if you have him on, is the creationist version of Jamie E. Someone who can provide links to scientific papers that actually back up what you're saying. That would be a good person to have on.
Yeah, that's true.
Or maybe he can do that himself.
Alrighty.
Okay.
That there is, after all, one true tree of life simply isn't supported by the evidence. To this day, studies in homology based on certain genes or RNA molecules and anatomical traits continue. And to this day, these studies fail to offer us one coherent picture of evolutionary history. Even as meta-studies are conducted whose goal it is to integrate several studies into one big picture. In other words, after 160 years of studying anatomical homologies and around 60 years of studying studying genetic homologies, Darwinists have still failed to tell us what the tree of life actually looks like. What this means is that those who study homology simply assume evolution to be true, but they've never actually demonstrated that the ancestral evolutionary relationships between different organisms are real. Check out this playlist over here to delve.
Pause. What does he think? That we expect that, like, we can only say elephants and manatees share a common ancestor if we witness their entire evolution? Is that what he's implying? Like, does he think... What does he think researchers are doing when they're comparing genes or fossils or homology? What does he think they're doing? I'm very curious now. I don't know.
They're trying to make the data fit their bias, Jackson. That is because projection is a thing.
It's true. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Continuing onward.
Nope, that was it. He's now promoting his playlist, which we don't have. So we are officially back to a black screen.
Well, let's jump on over to solving the mathematical problems with evolution, guys.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So this is a video.
Is this a tornado in a junkyard?
I don't know. So I haven't watched this video. I have not watched it. But this video has 3.3 million views.
Wow.
I don't remember who put it out, but that's okay. So in this video, it has a panel of 3 intelligent design advocates, not one of whom is a biologist. Not one. It has David Gelernter, who is a software engineer. Mm-hmm. David Berlinski, who is a mathematician, though not a biologist. And then Stephen Meyer, who is a philosopher. You would think who
pretends to be a paleontologist.
Who pretends to be a paleontologist and a cell biologist. Yeah, it's true. But you would think if the case were so clear that maybe they could find a biologist to help them, but apparently not. So, anyway,
are there any biologists in the room? Please raise your hand. Raise your hand. Please.
And I mean, I think they do have. What does Ann Gager study? I think she's a biologist of some sort.
Genetics, right?
I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah, she's one of the few. Yeah.
Yeah. Then because Behe is biochemistry.
But Berlinski is so weird because Berlinski is like one of these intelligent design guys who basically just says, "Oh yeah, evolution happened. It's just that there's these certain things that we don't understand. So how do we explain it? God the gaps."
Yeah, Berlinski says some really stupid stuff sometimes. Like, he goes on a tirade about how the Anthony Weiner's book, The Beak of the Finch, and he's like, it doesn't really show evolution; it just shows cyclic variation. Which, like, did you read it? Like, did you read the book? Because much of the book is dedicated to, like, an ancestral population arrived on the Galapagos Islands and then spread from there, and they have ecological differentiation, which leading to speciation. It's like that's a big part of the book. That's not just cyclic variation. Mm-hmm. Did you read the book? So.
Also, one of the things long ago, I remember the claim that he, like Berlinski, counted up 50,000 changes to go from a well, or from a cow to a well. Oh. And I was like, can you believe that he sat down and counted up 50,000 changes?
That's pretty funny.
I would like to see that. I would like to see the whole list.
Right? Yeah, like my guy, publish that list. We want to know. Mm-hmm. What did you count?
But so now I'm curious.
It was easy to count off.
What are Berlinski's credentials? Isn't he some kind of math PhD?
He's a mathematician.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's a mathematician. That's it. I mean, like, that's cool. That's great. It's great he can do math. Cool. But like, not a biologist. Doesn't know anything about biology.
Oh.
So
Again, he was on that fire line. He was on that firing line debate again with, you know, all those people I was talking about before. Behe was on that. Buckley Jr. was on that. You know, there was this, you know, huge discussion about Berlinski being on the side that he was on, because he was on the intelligent design side with a young Earth creationist. And basically, you know, everyone was saying, you know, well, they were saying this to Buckley Jr. as well, but they were basically saying, Berlinski, why are you on that side when basically you were supporting evolution? You just have these things that you don't understand, and so you're just going to put in, again, a god of the gaps. You know, anything that you don't understand, it doesn't mean that we can't try to explain it, and it doesn't mean that you can just say that a deity did it.
Right.
And Berlinski couldn't answer that question at all.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. Well, also on that the finch thing, he said, well, we don't know if the finches are turning into elephants, which was also an amazing quote. Sad. He's like, it's not evolution because they're not turning into elephants, which, yeah, okay, got me. You got him there. But yeah, Berlinski, he's a weird character.
He is a weird character. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we ready to, I guess, start this video?
Yep.
It's like an hour long, so it's gonna occupy us for a while.
Yes. Okay. Let's.
Oh shit.
Bring it.
So is the turret video.
Oh no, the uncommon knowledge.
Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge. I'm Peter Robinson, shooting today in Fiesole, a town in the hills above Florence, Italy.
I like the way
With
you
me
said
today,
that.
3 guests. David Berlinski is a philosopher, mathematician, and author who has lived in Paris for a couple of decades now, and is now the editor of Inference, the International Review of Science.
With a nice gene.
David Gelernter is a professor of computer science at Yale and the author of a number of books, including most recently The Tides of Mind, Uncovering the Spectrum of Consciousness.
Not biology.
Stephen Meyer is a philosopher and author. He directs the Center for Science and Culture
Also
at
not
the
a
Discovery
biologist?
Institute, a think tank
Yep.
in Seattle.
Weird.
Here's what brings us together.
Not one
In the Claremont
biologist.
Review of Books this past spring, David Gelernter published an essay titled "Giving Up Darwin." Quote, Stephen
read it.
Meyer's
It's
thoughtful
dumb.
and meticulous book, Darwin's Doubt, convinced me that Darwin has failed. The Deniable Darwin and Other Essays, a book by David Berlinski, is also, quote, essential. David Gelernter,
Essentially garbage.
David Berlinski, Stephen Meyer, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, definitions.
Oh, please, this
Darwin's
is going to be
book
fun.
is on the origin of species, and to quote from David Gelerner's essay, quote, there's no reason to doubt that Darwin successfully explained the small adjustments by which an organism adapts to local circumstances, changes to fur density, or wing style, or beak shape. Yet there are many reasons to doubt whether he can explain the big picture, not the fine-tuning of existing species.
So
but the
at this
emergence
point, he's
of new
basically
ones.
saying that he's a young Earth creationist because he doesn't accept that enough time adds up to adaptation beyond the species level. That's all he's saying right there. Basically, he's saying that Darwin was right. Darwin was right that evolution works. It's just that we don't have enough time, and he just pinned himself as a young Earth creationist.
In this quote, he first says that Darwin comes up with an explanation on different beak sizes, and then says not the fine-tuning of species. How is this different?
He's saying that he's not saying that. He's saying the big picture is not the fine-tuning of species, like different beak sizes, but the emergence of new species. He's saying Darwin could not explain the emergence of new species.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
He's right about it. Like, Darwin did not explain the. Ironically, he did not explain the origins of species. That was a discussion that was happening in like the 1950s and 80s as such. So, of course, now we have a very good picture of how new species come about.
Yeah.
You guys are a bit late on the curve.
He is. He's just another young Earth creationist who is putting on the mantle of intelligent design and saying that we don't have enough time for it to occur, and that's it. You know, he's basically a young Earth creationist who says that there was all this time. It could have happened, but I don't know how it happened because I don't think there was enough time. It's a weird. It's doublespeak. It's Orwellian doublespeak right there. His whole quote was nothing but that.
Yeah. He's basically doing I accept microevolution, but not macroevolution. But he's getting even more specific in that because at least he's defining what he thinks by macroevolution. He's saying he doesn't think Darwin explained the emergence of new species. Well, okay, sure. You could say Darwin didn't in 1859.
Yeah, exactly.
But by the 1940s, like Debunking and Meyer and lots of other biologists were working on that, and as Nestle pointed out, we have a really good view of that. I'm actually reading the book Speciation, the textbook on speciation, the emergence of new species, by Jerry Coyne and H. Allen Orr right now. And it's got a lot of stuff on the origin of new species, including like how they can evolve or appear, how new species can appear within a human lifetime. So
which we have so many examples of. I mean, how can they deny that actually occurs?
Well, Jonathan Wells also pushes the like I don't think speciation happens boundary, which again, dumb, way behind the times, guys. Which again, they're not biologists. Maybe if they'd found a biologist to interview.
Even most of the ID crowd has moved on from species, sure. But what about phyla? What about phyla?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, we're fine with the new species arising, but it's the origin of phyla that's the real question.
The objection you made, Jackson, is the reason why I took the clip of Behe that I took for the intro, because that is Behe interfering with a car mechanic who then sends him away because he's not qualified on this topic. And that is from one of his own videos. So he does know that might not be a good thing. So at least Behe knows. Now we need all the other creationists to figure out that you don't ask a dentist about evolutionary biology or a mathematician.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Or, okay. Continue?
Yeah, good luck with that. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Quote, okay, I'm a layman. I know nothing.
It's okay, so are they.
Me somebody that you're not just defining the term species.
I know nothing, you know nothing. Let's talk about it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed his question though. He said,
there really is very little disagreement on the issue of what a species is, and I think it doesn't have to be a technical term.
Wow.
I think virtually any.
Wait.
Sorry.
No.
I didn't mean to stop it right there.
He didn't just say
just
that.
Happened.
No, he didn't just say that.
We might have, Ernst Mayr and the biological species concept, but there are so many species concepts because we have so many different types of ways that species can occur, and they don't always happen in sexual populations. So just total bullshit to start with.
I can't believe he just said, pretty much everybody agrees what a species is.
Yeah.
My dude, please, I beg you, pick up like the slightest bit of literature from speciation studies. The smidgenest
Tell me you
bit.
don't know anything about biology without telling me you don't know anything about biology.
Just the smidgenest bit. Like, is it true that a lot of researchers use the biological species concept in their studies? Yes, that is one of the most used species concepts, probably the most used. That's fine. Does that mean there's no disagreement? Heck no. There are papers about the speciation continuum, because speciation isn't like in most cases, it's not you're done. You're speciated. In most cases, it's this long, gradual process over hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years. And so at what point can you say, okay, now it's a new species? Well, you can't really. You have to take a bunch of different facts about this population into account before you can decide whether or not it's a new species.
Especially with all the hybridization zones that go on. It's not like it's just going to be like pop. All of a sudden you have this population that flies across the earth halfway and is totally isolated. That doesn't happen.
Right.
It's like defining what a particular climate is. So like we can classify climates based on temperature and precipitation, but there will always be like boundary conditions that gradually radiate into each other. So it becomes difficult to have a clear-cut distinction between the two.
Right.
So yeah.
So along
or just the fact that you can have like a different speciation events going on in a single tree in a forest, because some organisms are going to be more they're going to adapt to what is going on in the niche that's at the top of the tree, and some are going to be in the understory of the tree,
the host race speciation.
Exactly. They probably started out as the same species, but one found that they could have more success by gleaning the branches near the top of the tree in full sunlight, and therefore their coloration, their behavior and everything else changed compared to the species that adapted to the bottom of the tree where it was dark and when there was other resources to gather.
Right. Yeah. There's the speciation continuum points to ideas like, on the one hand you have like, basically polymorphisms within a population. So you have these minor variations within a population. Then as you move along a little bit, you have like, different races or subspecies or whatever the term you want to use is. And then like towards the other end, you have like the syngamian, where you have what would otherwise be like fine species, good species, but they still interbreed fairly regularly. And from those sorts of things, you can get like new hybrid species. Like there, lots of plants are hybrid species. It's called reticulate evolution when you get that sort of thing. Yeah, my goodness. No, man. No. Spray bottle.
It's a black and white.
The first comment and already a banger.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees.
He's trying to do
is.
It's this or that. That's it.
Yeah. Someone tell the speciation experts that they figured out what a species is.
Didn't even Darwin question it's pretty arbitrary.
He did.
Actually.
He said he said we are freed from trying to find the essence of what a species is. Yeah.
Even Darwin was further ahead.
Yeah, he did also say one of my favorite quotes from chapter 2 of Origin was while comparing the species on the Galapagos, it's the boundary between race and species was super arbitrary, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Like how he's like how arbitrary is the distinction between species and varieties? So yeah, wrong. All right. Let's keep going.
Alert child knows when he passes from one species of pet creature to another.
Is this like the Kent Hovind to 5-year-old?
I was just about to say.
I was about to say.
Is that the same thing?
Even a 5-year-old can tell.
Yeah.
Even a 5-year-old can tell the difference.
Yep.
And then you invite a 5-year-old over to do that experiment, and the 5-year-old proves you wrong.
Actually,
exactly.
I don't think Kent Hovind should be inviting any 5-year-olds over.
Oh, but it happened on air live. Oh, no. He asked the 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old gave the wrong answer.
That's
yeah.
I think wasn't it Feist Rhino who made a video about that?
Was it the wolf, the dog, the banana, and the train?
I forgot which one it was, but the 5-year-old picked the wrong one. Actually, what an evolutionist would say. I think it was Vice Rhino who did a video on this. Sadly, that video is now gone.
Well, that is pretty funny.
Because the entire channel of Kent Hovind is gone, and the other channel is gone. So we can't find it anymore. But yeah, that was a good one. Ask a 5-year-old.
Yeah, no, he really just did. David Gelernter, an intelligent design guy who I'm sure would want nothing to do with Kent Hovind, really just gave a child could tell you.
You have to be careful with how you pronounce that. I would say, if you say it like that, I would say the ID guy. I wouldn't call him an intelligent design guy.
The ID. Okay, fair enough. You got me there.
See?
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, a cow or a sheep or something like that. This is part of our innate view of.
What kid has a
His
cow
examples
or
are
a sheep
cow and
as a pet?
sheep.
He's listing. He said if a kid goes from one species of pet to another, like a cat, a dog, a cow, or a sheep. I want to see. I want to see that house.
Children.
I want to see that house.
Peter, children are famously aware of the distinctions between the different subspecies of oaks in the American Southeast. Clearly, children can choose between one and the other. This is not.
Oh, and know if it's
easy.
not a maple. They'd be like, oh, that's an oak, that's a maple, or a birch.
And these other guys are sitting there with a straight face, while this guy pretends that there are kids that have cows as pets.
I think that was the least of their worries in that moment.
Can I suggest that we play the clip until it gets to another point, or if we move on to another individual, because
that's fair.
This place will be here forever.
No, you're right. Okay.
This is going to be like Arn Ra's Bible study. Someone did a calculation, and so apparently we're going to be finished with the Bible in 25 years, at the rate we're going. I'm not kidding.
That I kind of believe.
Mm-hmm.
The universe.
I mean, it took Hugo and Jake, Hannah and Jake, like what, 4 or 5 years to go through the Old Testament, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
It was a long time. It was a long time. It took them quite a while.
This is going even slower. It's a lot of fun, and the Book of Mormon. So completely unrelated. You don't watch Aaron's Book of Mormon stream, do you?
No.
There's one video you need to watch. It's on Aaron's channel. Ozzy reads the Book of Mormon. Aaron read an entire verse in the voice of Ozzy Osbourne. If you haven't seen that, you're missing out on life itself.
You'll have to send it to me afterwards.
I will send that to you. I have the link to that. You need to go see that. That was just brilliant.
Wants to define anything to Darwin's disadvantage. I think you're looking at 3 scientists here, and I think every one of us
no, you're
actually not one
has
scientist.
appreciated, and I am speaking only for myself, but I'd be surprised, appreciated the beauty of what Darwin did. It certainly was no joy to conclude that Steve was right. It was no joy for me to give up
because you're an
beautiful.
Idiot. Did you see Berlinski's face there? If looks could kill, it was funny.
Theory and one
why
that
was it
was
beautiful?
such a
Why
good
was it beautiful?
explanation.
Beautiful is aesthetic, so there's something subjective about it. But explain that. Why did Darwin strike you as beautiful?
Each year of my life, I am less convinced that there is anything at all subjective about beauty.
Oh, really?
The fact that here we are in Florence, and every single person in the city wants to see the Michelangelo portrait I mentioned to you, and the slaves in the academia, and the great.
That means that other people who are visiting Florence never want to see something completely different, because. 3 people.
We need to move on to an actual point.
Okay. In the Uffizi, people come from all over Asia. People come from Africa. They come from all over the world.
Maybe this is why the video is an hour long.
Little disagreement. I mean, there's disagreement about theorems and topology also. When people say, I believe the proof, I don't believe the proof. There's disagreement about everything in human life, but I think less about the greatest art than about any other subject.
Okay,
beauty is something that I think.
I know this guy's looking at him like, "What are you talking about? What's this word salad?"
I'm just curious if the guy, if the presenter is related to Tucker Carlson in any way, shape, or form. He has that exact same look on his face.
I mean, the interviewer is sitting there like just totally confounded. He's like, what the fuck is going on here? And Berlinski is standing there with Berlinski.
I just asked you what you find beautiful about.
Yeah, he's like, what do you find?
Looks like he's gonna whip out that cane and smack someone.
Yeah, he's just floundering right now. It's like, what are you doing, man?
All
right, let's keep going.
to use as a pointer in the direction of truth. Darwin's theory struck me as beautiful insofar as it explains big things by generalizing little things. You mentioned the change in the density of fur on a creature with fur, the shape of the beak of a bird or of a feather of a bird. Darwin can explain those things by principles of natural selection. And when he says, well, we can go from these little changes, a beak is 3 inches as opposed to 3 1/4 inches, we can use the same mechanism by which we explain that to explain why there are sheep and cows, why there are monkeys and also orangutans, and why apes are different from monkeys. The fact that we can explain this huge question of where species came from, the origin of species, using the same mechanism that will work.
I just the way the camera.
For now, you've pointed that out. We can't unsee it.
The way the camera cuts back to the interviewer, cracked me up.
He's like, what is going on? What are you talking about?
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. Amazing. Sorry.
But here's the thing. The guy is completely right, right? He's completely right. He's basically saying that, yeah, these small changes over time can add up.
Sure.
Hey, what if that beak grows to be twice as long as the animal's actual body length? Well, what would we consider it then? Well, we consider it a totally different species, maybe even a different, completely different organism, right?
Right.
Because it's adapted so far that it's not going to look like its ancestor.
I love it. I love it how you now put the image of a toucan in my mind. And if RJ were here, he would call these guys tortugans.
That is very true.
Yes.
So,
which is not a bird, it's a turtle, but yeah.
Yeah.
Or a tortoise.
Bird is one aspect of what makes the theory beautiful. I mean, other people look at it.
You see Berlinski looking at the interviewer. Can you shut this guy up, please? Can you?
Yeah.
That's why he has the cane. The cane is gonna whack someone. It is. It's like, shut up, Smack.
All right.
And Meyer's completely dumbfounded. I
know. Myers is like, I'm not going to say anything because these guys are crazy.
Yeah.
From different just quickly, because I want to go into the arguments against, but did you have the same response? Does Darwin strike you as beautiful?
He basically cut him off and said, anyways.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. It's like, shut up, buddy. Let's talk to someone else.
And Berlinski's eager to speak.
Yeah. And now Berlinski's laughing and Stephen is laughing. So that's finally. All right.
Already, Jackson, thank you for picking this one. This is great so far.
I see why it's an hour.
It was a comprehensive synthesis. And so from the standpoint of what scientists look for, it had an appeal. It was also a well-argued book, The Origin of Species. But it was well-argued on the basis of evidence that was known in the 19th century and not things that we've learned mostly from the 20th and 21st.
Okay, we come to that now.
People in a time period use the evidence in that time period. Wow, what a revelation. Who would have thunk it? My goodness.
It was well argued.
Did you guys know that...
I don't have anything to refute it.
Did you guys know that I do not have access currently to evidence for evolution in the 22nd century? Did you guys know that? Fun fact, by the way.
The audacity.
Is the mathematical challenge to evolution that Darwin didn't have access to stuff in the 20th century? I don't know. Anyway.
The fossil record. Problem 1, the fossil record. Darwinian evolution, I'm quoting you, is gradual, step by step. Yet in the Cambrian explosion
there we go again.
half a billion years ago,
so many times,
a striking variety of new organisms, including the first ever animals, pop up suddenly in the fossil record over a mere 70 million years.
Over
Close
a
quote.
mere 70 million years.
Yeah,
Suddenly.
exactly.
70 million
Longer
years.
than it took for all
Stephen Meyer won't be happy about that one.
You know, at least he's not wrong. The Cambrian explosion did last like 70 million years, but yeah. But my goodness.
Or at the very least, it's you cannot have it's not subjective to put here it begins, here it ends. Like it graduates from the beginning to the end, and also into the great Ordovician biotic diversification, right? Yeah, it's there's no definite beginning and definite ending with that. Also,
if you guys want a full and we've done a bunch of videos on this channel, but if you want a singular deep dive into all the Cambrian stuff, I co-authored a script which is on Professor Dave's channel. It's the Debunking Stephen Meyer one. That script was very cathartic to write, because on this channel we kind of wrote a bunch of Cambrian videos kind of about different things. We did 2 different videos on the Cambrian. We did stuff responding to Long Story Short. We did stuff responding to Meyer. We did a video on just the pre-Cambrian animals. So we were kind of all over the place.
Now all of that is in one video. Now all of it, basically,
Yeah, Professor Dave's thing has all of that in just one video, and so it's very in depth. So, yeah, but also 70 million years. My goodness.
Yeah, like Stephen Meyer will probably say at least 10, or maybe 25, but at least 10 million years. Like Stephen will say 10 million years.
As Smitty points out, the dinosaurs went extinct a mere 66 million years ago.
Just yesterday.
I remember them like it was yesterday. Yeah. My goodness. Okay, we can keep going.
Now, 70 million years seems to be plenty of time for all kinds of surprising things to this layman.
Yeah. Crazy.
Why is the Cambrian explosion such a problem for Darwin?
The Cambrian explosion was something that...
Such a problem that it even began to convince this man.
Yeah, it was a problem that even Darwin was aware of, and he wrote about it in The Origin of Species. He said it was inexplicable on his view of life. But he felt that the future fossil finds would fill in the missing ancestral forms that were evident. What happens in the Cambrian is you get a huge number of what are called the animal body plans, where a body plan is a unique configuration of body parts and tissues. And they arrive very abruptly in the fossil record without discernible connection to earlier precursors or earlier ancestors in the Precambrian record.
If this wall were the side of a canyon, halfway up we'd see...
You have a stripe of rock, and in that stripe you'd find a whole bunch of new forms of animal life.
And in the layers underneath, there would be no intermediate, there'd be nothing leading to
with
that.
any discernible connection. Right.
So
the Cambrian
just to kind of punctuate this, because Meyer has the one line, with no discernible antecedents. That's the one line he's been saying for the past 20 years.
It's deliberate.
Yeah, there's a reason he says it that way. So the discernible antecedents that Meyer's talking about, we actually have stem bilaterians in the late Precambrian, right? There are stem eumetazoans, and there are sponges and cnidarians in the late Precambrian in the Ediacaran, and so.
Recently, we have basically a long segmented worm, which may be related to annelids, or it may be related to arthropods, or maybe both. Ylingia or something, if you pronounce it correctly.
I wouldn't be surprised if Euarthropoda originated in the Cambrian. I wouldn't be surprised. But then when you say, or when Meyer says, there are no discernible antecedents, where are the euarthropods in the Ediacaran? Well, there aren't any. They weren't there yet. There are going to be weird wormy things.
Stem groups, yeah,
all sorts of stem arthropods like Anomalocaris, Opobinia, which are all Cambrian guys. It does leave a trace. We've talked about this. Their lungs aren't affected by gravity in the same way, and they have elastic cells. I'm sorry. I was looking at. I was looking at the live chat. It's not.
I've seen the same thing. Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. Yeah. But I'm just react to that. their lungs aren't. They are in water. The water is making them buoyant. Like
right. The cells are the same though, right? Like the cells that line your lung tissue, yours are the same as those in elephants and in manatees. It's the same cell tissue. My guy, like, what are you talking about? Sorry. But yeah, there are those discernible antecedents are there.
Just one interruption. Should we tell him about the fact that we can use heart valves from a pig, put them into humans?
I think you just did.
As an example, or should we not tell him how similar we are?
I think you just did.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So it just so anyway, all right, we can keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
The explosion itself has been differently dated, but increasingly the date that David used of 70 million years is a very generous date for it. The age range is actually narrowing as a result of additional findings. It's now about 10 million years is the increasingly...
I'm sorry. When he says 10 million years, what he's saying, so they're using Cambrian explosion in different ways. He's not technically wrong. They are the same. I literally just said they're the same. What are you talking about? The lung cells, your lung cells, are the same as elephant lung cells, and also manatee lung cells, and also rabbit lung cells. It's the same type of tissue that is making up all their lungs. All of us. It's all the same. My goodness.
I would just ask him, like, give me a citation to show what you're talking about specifically. Like,
yeah, right. I was like, what are you talking about? It's the same tissue. Okay, so when Meyer says that the Cambrian explosion is 10 million years long, he's not technically wrong by certain metrics of the Cambrian. There are different ways to define the Cambrian boundary. Now Meyer is actually
he's probably talking about Cambrian stage 3. Like that's probably the most thing that he wants to focus on. Like when trilobites first appeared in the fossil record. Like that's Cambrian stage 3, I think.
Right. The Cambrian explosion he's referring to, which is based on, what is it, like the Bowring 2011 paper or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just looking at one stage of the whole Cambrian radiation. It's looking at this one stage, which had, I think it's the greatest amount of morphological disparity or diversity. And that's the one period he's looking at. He's saying, look, this is the Cambrian right here. Now, Gelernter is saying the whole of the Cambrian radiation. He's referring to the whole thing. Now, Meyer's just saying it's just one little bit. So neither of them are technically wrong, but Meyer chooses the 10 million year one because it sounds better. It sounds better to say you had this big burst of evolution of all these organisms in this tiny time period, which again, not tiny, but regardless. But he just wants to wow you with numbers, essentially, is the argument. So.
And also, I think I also looked up that Bowring paper myself also a long time ago, and it's I think it's a fairly old paper which gives dates that are different from what we know today. And if you look up the current dates, then instead of it being 10 million years, I think it's closer to about 14 or 18 million years or something. Like I need to look up specifically exactly what the numbers are.
It was a 93. No, I'm sorry, I'm getting them mixed up. It was a Bowring 1993. The 2011 paper Bowring, was Irwin, was Douglas Irwin. The one about the genetic toolbox. That was the Irwin 2011 paper. Yeah. So it was Bowring 1993, which Meyer was using in 2013. So like 20 years later. And then, this video is just from a few years ago. So almost a decade later. Right. So it's just that one little citation.
I can give you the specific numbers in a minute, but or maybe you can.
But that's kind of the argument.
Continue further.
So all right, we can continue.
Accepted date, and there are major explosions. In one Chinese seam, there's 13 to 16 different major groups of animals that have arisen in a 5 to 6 million year window. It's incredibly abrupt geologically when you consider the age of the Earth is 4.5 billion years. It's also very abrupt biologically, because there is a mathematical branch of Darwinian theory called population genetics that allows us to calculate how much change, evolutionary change, we ought to expect in a given amount of time if we know things like the mutation rate, the generation time, the population sizes. And 5, 10, even 70 million years is a blink of an eye in terms of the calculations that can be made for what are called waiting times. And the expected waiting times for the amount of change that's...
So, no, wrong. 70 million years, yeah, blink of an eye. So, as I've been reading Jerry Coyne's book, Speciation, one of the things he points out is that for a lot of, if you have sympatric sister species of Drosophila, it takes about 200,000 years for them to speciate. 200,000 on average. Now, combine that with 70 million years. How many? Oh, let's do the math right now, I guess. 70 million divided by...
As you're figuring that out, I think
350.
One thing that he pointed out was kind of really telling. He's basically saying that we only have these specific fossil assemblages in certain areas. And so he's not actually, he's basically admitting that we don't have a fossil record for the whole time period over the whole Earth. So we only know what happened in one specific area at one specific time. And not even a specific time, there's this range that goes on. Right. Who knows what was going on somewhere else? The other part about that is that we also really don't know, and actually we kind of do know that, all these different body plans occurred over different time periods over this long Cambrian explosion, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, whatever you want to talk about. You have these miniature Cambrian explosions occurring, right? You have, you have the occurrence of a lot of arthropods at one time period. You have the occurrence of some of the stem vertebrate fossils at another time period, chordates, and you have these different things happening at different time periods, and we're trying to piece it together based off of a very limited amount of knowledge from very small fossil groups, because we can't trace this genetically necessarily. We can say that there are certain things that link these this diversity that occurred during this time period between the different major animal groups today, but we don't have the full picture. So he's basically saying that we don't have the full picture. We can never really have it. And he's just basically saying that, we don't know what's going on. So what is he trying to even say about that? Is he trying to say that it didn't happen? Well, it doesn't appear so. It appears he's saying that it happened this long ago, and that we know that certain species and certain groups, certain clades started to occur at certain times, and we know that from certain areas, but he doesn't know what happened in other areas, and we might never know what happened in certain other areas. So why is he even making this argument? What does it mean? He's not going to tell us that. He's just trying to sow seeds of dissent, right? He's trying to make us question the whole process, because we might never be able to know everything that happened during the Cambrian explosion.
But that's the entire young Earth and ID proponent argument that they have. You will never have the full picture. Therefore, there are gaps, and you can explain what happened in the gaps. If you find a fossil, you just create 2 more gaps. They all do that in a larger or smaller scale, but that's basically it. If you find something and you present the data, they will point to something completely different and say, but what about that?
Or they'll basically say, oh, we don't know what happened at this time period at this spot on the Earth, so what?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What are you trying to claim happened there? I mean, we don't really know, do we? So we have to try to fill it in somehow. And what are you trying to say about it, ID guy? Well, you're trying to say that there must have been some magical man who done it, right? That's what it kind of comes down to.
I have the context for the borrowing paper of 1993.
So, we'll do this, and then that'll be the last thing for show.
All right.
Go ahead.
And the paper says that there is a logistic pattern when it comes to the diversification in the Cambrian. It includes a slow initial phase of 14 million years, followed by an exponential increase in diversification, some 5 or 10 million years. So this would mean that the total diversification lasts for 20 to 25 million years. But they give certain dates for the boundaries that they examined, and with the updated dates for these boundaries, we get a logistics pattern of the Cambrian radiation of also about 24 million years. Started at a slow initial phase of 9 million years, followed by an exponential phase of 15 million years. And of course, in the paper itself, Stephen wants to focus on the exponential phase of 10 million years, but with the updated dates, it's 15 or closer to 15 million years for the exponential phase. So that's it. Yeah.
And we'll have to dig it more into the paper to actually see what they're saying and what he's trying to, put the spin on, right? He's trying to put a spin on this to say that there's something happening here. We don't know what it is, and how else are we going to explain it besides invoking something supernatural?
Yeah. Basically. But totally not God of the Gaps. Definitely not. We would never do that.
No, that never happens.
Well, alrighty. What have you guys got going on this week as we slide out?
I'm setting up a conversation with a young Earth creationist that's going to happen either on Tuesday or on Thursday at 3 p.m. U.S. Central or 10 p.m. European time. I'm waiting for him to confirm either of the two dates. So, but yeah, that will be my next guest on the show. And so usually,
I'm looking forward to that.
Usually I do an intake, and I will tell people, okay, we're going to talk about 10 minutes. You can ask questions about the show. This intake took an hour and 15 minutes because we apparently got along, which we didn't on Twitter. So I'm looking forward to this one. Guy has a good sense of humor, so usually that helps with having a good conversation. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Nice. What about you, Nestlig? What have you got?
No, nothing specific. Today I woke up with a cold, so I think I'm going to try to recover from that for the coming days.
Sounds like a good idea.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. I just have a stuffy nose. That's all.
Nestlig, you know that you now have a disease for which there is no known cure.
I know.
Be careful.
Oh, you know. There's just lots of chicken soup and tea.
If you eat chicken soup after 30 days, it should be gone. Which is weird because that's what usually is the case naturally if you take nothing.
And I'm just getting ready for spring. Actually, I'm starting to look at putting some seeds in the ground and making some cuttings off of my houseplants so I can put them out on my corner farm stand that I've got going, and that's about it. I just getting ready for the weather to start to change. Hope you're feeling better, Nestle, because I was feeling a little bit stuffy this week as well, but that passed me by pretty quick. And kind of just enjoying what's going on here because I've definitely been depressed by what's going on Twitter. It's just kind of the roundabout thing that goes on. It's just, day after day, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, and over and over and over again.
Being completely selfish. Being completely selfish, Cypher. Any concrete plans to revive your YouTube channel? Because I 2 days ago I got something on Facebook that for some reason showed me something. Joe Shinkowski has read my last message, which was, Cypher is still waiting for you to do that follow-up debate. So he's read it now.
The fourth debate? Oh my gosh.
He's read it now.
Oh wow. Well, I'll ask Joe if he wants to have his fourth debate that he agreed to have with me today.
I would prefer
our fourth conversation.
I would prefer a slightly better guest than Joe Shinkowski, but I mean,
yeah, you know, that's the weird thing is that, you know, I don't know. I constantly ask people on Twitter if they want to have a live conversation. Never happens. And you know, I do focus on the young Earth creationists. I will admit that. You know, I'm kind of more along the lines of asking them why they think that there's this literary flood that happened, you know, about 4,000 years ago. But yeah, I would love to have that happen, but no one wants to have that conversation anymore. You know, I want to have the conversation, but I should say none of the creationists actually want to talk about it for some reason, oddly enough.
What I will do is if I get a guest who wants to have the conversation about evolution and about how it's not true, what we could do is we could do some kind of collab and do a show on your channel as a follow-up to the show on my channel, because well, Jackson sometimes comes on our channel when I have a guest that specifically wants to talk about evolution. But I mean, we need to spread things a little. I think that it's very useful that we have different people talking to creationists, because everyone needs a different approach. And so
I agree, and we need to have, you know, people who talk about it from different backgrounds as well. You know, I go about it from a geological standpoint, even though I throw in a lot of evolution. I'm sure Jackson, you know, could really you know, talk about stuff that I've never even thought about bringing up before, and that's I think really important. But you know, as far as the young Earth guy that you're going to have on soon, I will definitely listen to the conversation, and we'll try to join the live chat as well.
Much appreciated.
Well, that sounds fun. Yeah. So now, I think we're gonna sign off. At some point we're gonna, or I will put out that well, either of the videos we've written now. I just haven't had any time. So here's hoping I have that next week.
One more thing.
Well,
I did take the liberty of putting in Cypher's Twitter account and the YouTube channel in the chat for people who want to check him out. So
absolutely, definitely should.
Okay.
All right. Well, bye everybody.
Bye everyone.
Hey, have a good one. Nice talking to you.